Hello and welcome back to this episode of Vessel and Voice podcast. I'm your host, Kim Charlson, and in this episode, we're going to hear from Monty first, all about a insight that he has to share with us about how our intention sets our path forward. This originally came up first during a channeling session with a client that we had about a month ago. And it was something that really sat with me and wanted to really come into my consciousness a lot more. And then I thought quite a lot about my own path, my own intentions, and how I kind of went through my life before really getting into spiritual work. So I'm going to let Monty kick off the beginning of this episode and really explain this insight. And then I'm going to, at the end of the episode, bring in the human insight into it of how we can start to apply this into our lives, because I think it's important that we hear from Monty first in this episode, and then we'll wrap it all up together at the end. So I'll see you in a little bit. The most important aspect of your work, both in physical manifestation as well as in your work energetically, is your intention and the path that you set forward going along that path of intention. Intention is what constructs the path that you walk on in life. If you imagine in front of you that there is a path that you are treading down, and every single time that you see a choice in front of you, the path will bifurcate into different paths that you could take based off of your choices. And every single one of those is a slightly different intention of what you are choosing and who you are being as you make that choice. The more that you can align along the path of your intention, the easier it will be for you to maintain consistency along your path and understand that the results are a byproduct of the path that you are treading. Merely a path is all of the different choices that are presented in front of you along your life. And as you choose your intention and use your intention to make your different decisions along the way, the byproduct of those paths is the results that you are seeking. For example, in one of our recent sessions with a client, she talked about that her intention for her life is to have more freedom, as she is facing different decisions along her path of whether or not she will maintain a full-time job, open her own business, go down to part-time. As she is looking at all of these choices, if she asks herself, which one of these will help me realize my intention of freedom, each one of those choices will become easier to pick among, as well as understanding that the results that she truly wants of having enough wealth and time will be the byproduct of going along the path via the choice that has that carried intention in its energy. It is important to understand that when you choose based off of results rather than intention, you are very often changing your intention subconsciously along the way, and thus results in that you are constantly chasing results but never quite realizing the results that you are looking for in life. For example, if you decide that you wish to tread along your path looking for a relationship, you will do different actions along that path of making different choices that you want because you believe that these choices will lead to having a relationship with a specific person. However, what you will find is that many of those times you will find your energy is very scattered trying to find your path forward, rather than if you chose the path of intention, of love, you could rather identify that you will experience love by making different choices rather than anticipating potential outcomes. That you can look at the choices that you are making and determine, is this the most loving choice I could be making right now? Because your intention when you are seeking a relationship is really to experience the energy of love. And instead of trying to seek out a particular relationship, you can instead make your choices by deciding which one is the most loving and going forward along that path of intention which will allow you to actually realize the energy of love, to get the results of the energy of love, rather than chasing after a particular relationship that may or may not come to fruition, and feeling the lack of love and feeling the lack of affection as you are trying to manifest that particular relationship in your life. Now, when you are moving forward in your life, it is a good idea to think of one main intention that you wish to have. And the more that this intention is aligned with your true energy within your soul, the easier it will be for you to tread along that path of intention, because it will feel very authentic to you. It will feel as though that path is very natural and an obvious part of who you are. Because as you are treading the path of your intention going forward, and you are setting that intention and actively choosing on it on a consistent basis, you are indeed choosing the energy that you are. You are indeed choosing the being that you are being, as well as the energy that you are becoming as part of that process of going forward along this path. So when you can identify from a soul aspect the energies within yourself that you wish to realize, to manifest, to experience, and collaborate with in physical manifestation, it becomes much easier because you are that energy already inside. You are already the physical manifestation of that energy, and so more of the same will come into your life. For example, say you wish to experience a life of peace. If your energy at its core is not one of peace, but rather is one of adventure, you will have a hard time of finding peace because you will always be drawn towards adventure. It is important to understand why you are setting this intention. Is this intention from the ideas of the broader cultural atmosphere of one intention, one energy is better than another? Or is it truly something that you wish to experience? Is it truly something that you wish to have more of in your life? Now, in the idea of peace versus adventure, yes, they can both coexist, but when you are treading a path of peace, you will not probably go jump off of a cliff. There is a very big difference between a path of adventure, of someone making the decision to jump off of a cliff with a parachute, versus someone who would rather sit in meditation at a beach. Those are very different intentions of how someone may encounter a cliff by a beach and decide to interact with it. While we know that this is a broad example, we can understand that when you are looking at the world, it may be that you grew up in a culture where jumping off of the cliff with a parachute was something that was seen as completely normal. Or sitting on the beach in meditation is seen as something completely normal. You may even see that one is better than the other. However, neither is better than the other. They are merely both two different energies, two different intentions that you could experience in the same space. It could be that you are sitting at the bottom of the cliff on the beach and meditating in peace and looking out at the ocean and feeling at one with the universe. Or maybe you feel at one with the universe when you jump off the cliff and trust that the parachute will open and work and that you get to look out flying like a bird. Both of these are two different experiences of the same space, two different experiences of the same universe, but both have the same end result of feeling at one with who you are and with the universe, if it is in alignment for you. If you are someone who is seeking adventure, sitting on the beach trying to meditate may be very difficult for you, an experience that you do not wish to have, one that requires extreme self-discipline that feels at odds, versus the person who wished to sit in peace on the beach may really dislike vehemently the idea, barely even having to force themselves off of the cliff and jumping. It may be that it is totally outside of the bounds of not only what they are comfortable with, but what is appropriate for them on an individual level. This is why understanding your own energy and corresponding that with the choices that you are making is very helpful, because then you can live a life that is very authentic to you. Now, this is something that we have spoken about in our membership group, but there is no such thing as bringing in more of your soul into your physical form. Your physical form is fully and completely full of your soul at any given time. It may be that, though, that is shrunken down, confined to a smaller space. And so therefore it is not exuded into the world around you. When you are in more connection with your soul and are bringing in more of that energy, your physical form can only maintain so much energy at once in your energetic capacity. And so the rest of your soul's energy begins to radiate out from you. When your soul's energy begins to radiate out from you, when you are living in your authenticity, this allows the law of attraction of similar energies to work in your favor, bringing more of the same energy to you as you get to experience that energy. Your soul set out in this particular incarnation to experience specific aspects of its energy. You are a multidimensional being, as has been spoken about many times before, but your soul is choosing to work with certain aspects of your multidimensional state while you are in this current physical manifestation. There are certain energies that your soul wishes to collaborate with in this particular lifetime, and so therefore it has picked that it will highlight more of those energies in its own energetic makeup for this particular incarnation. Your soul is a much more broad and much more complete and much more encompassing energy than you are capable of understanding and feeling while you are in physical form because of the limitations of physical manifestation. Now, there are those select few who can extend their energetic capacity to the point that they can hold the multidimensional aspects of their soul. But this is very rare for most humans, and it is reserved for a select few who wish to experience that in their particular physical manifestation in this particular incarnation that they are in. However, the more that you work on expanding your energetic capacity, the more that you can hold your soul, the easier it will be for you to maintain your intention as you move forward on your life path and to make choices more in alignment with the energy that you wish to be, that you wish to cultivate in your life, that you wish to experience over and over. So as part of this week's podcast, what we would ask you to do is that you begin to contemplate in your energy, what are the energies that you can feel within yourself? Whether or not you are very in touch with energy work or very in touch with your soul and understand it on a deep level, it does not matter. It rather matters that you are open to this opportunity. Your soul will present this in its own way of showing you how it likes to behave and feel in this physical incarnation right now. It is who you are underneath all of the layers of social conditioning. As you are going through this experience and contemplating what is the intention for my life that my soul wishes to carry forward, remember to ask yourself, is this something that is coming from me truly, deeply in the inside? Or is it something that the broader culture that I have been raised in, that I function in, is saying is better than one from the other? If you grew up in an adventuresome family, but you yourself are someone that wishes to experience peace, it can feel very at odds. But it may be that your soul has decided to experience what it means to be challenged to maintain a sense of peace. And so therefore was placed into a family or the cultural upbringing that prioritizes adventure over peace. Now, obviously, as we have repeated, these are not at odds energies, but are merely very obviously different one from the other to illustrate our point. But as you are contemplating your intention and how your soul is showing you its intention for moving along the path of your life, you may find that your energy is very, very much at odds with your physical manifestation and cultural conditioning that you have been in. That is because your soul wishes for you to also experience what it means to be different, what it means to be brave, and what it means to do your own path that is very different than those around you. And this is what your soul has intended in part for this lifetime. Understand that your soul has many intentions and that your intention as accordingly will change throughout your life. It is not merely that you pick one intention when you came into physical manifestation and that was your only intention. There are different intentions that you will have in different seasons of your life, and part of moving throughout your life is picking different intentions. When you look on the choices that you have made in your past, remember that the intention that you held in that time was different than the intention that you're holding now, whether or not you were aware of it and whether or not you were acting upon it. And so therefore, Do not think that you ended up where you are now because you made the wrong choices along your intention. Regret will get you nowhere. It is rather about making different choices going forward from now along the intention that your soul is set out for this season, this period in your life. As always, as you are working through your own intentions and if any questions that come up, please send them to us and we will do our best to answer them. Thank you. That is all. When I first heard this insight from Monty after we completed the channeling for the client, I went back and reviewed what he had said, and it wasn't quite as succinct as what he shared today. And I asked a lot of questions about it to better understand what his point was. So I'm really glad that he came forward today and shared with us what this path of intention really is about and how we can start to use it in our lives, because intention, he highlights over and over again, is the most important aspect energetically. And it's something that's a basic energetic tenet that we hear all the time in energy work of your intention is the most important thing. Where your intention goes, energy flows, all of that. But how do you actually use that in your life? So to break down what Monty has shared with us today, basically get to know the energy of your soul, the unique energy that you have inside of you, in your soul, that you are the physical manifestation of. And this is unique to you. It could be very different than your societal upbringing or how you were conditioned by your parents and your schooling and all of that. And that, it comes from within. It doesn't come from outside of you. For me, in my life, it has been really hard to isolate that. And continually, even to this day, this is something that I really struggle with a lot personally. So to hear that from him of sometimes our souls choose to be in a different physical manifestation that challenges us to really hold on to our energy is something that I've been very intrigued by. Then the second part that Monty talked about is once we have really an understanding of that energy of who we are, to then act through that with our intention going forward. And then the results will be a byproduct. So the things that we're looking for are going to be, as a result of treading along that intention. That was what he talked about in the channeling session when this first came up. It was definitely more about the results because the person was asking about, how do I get these specific results of, I want X, Y, and Z in my life. How do I make that? And it doesn't really matter what it was that the client was asking about, because it's become something that I've understood is very applicable to all of us. For example, as I'm making this podcast, I would love to have more people listen to my podcast. And I could go along forward with that intention, and the decisions that I make along the way to make this podcast, I could be making different choices about how I'm making it to make it more easily shared or more easily get traction on different platforms. I've decided, for example, I'm not going to release a bunch of episodes in the very beginning. We're just releasing one episode. So this was now the third episode that we've released. And that instead of, batching, a lot of podcasts when they first come out have like 5 or 6 episodes that they go live within the very first week that they go live. And that was something that I decided not to do. And from an intention standpoint, if I decided I want to get as many people to listen to this podcast as quickly as possible, then I need to have like 3 or 4 episodes that we released in the very beginning when we released this podcast. And that would have made very different decisions about those episodes and what I was doing with them, versus this way, the intention that I have is being a vessel for the messages as they come through, when they come through. And what that means for me in my work is going slower, slowing down, making sure that I'm really present with Monty, that I'm not putting pressure on it about what I want out of that channeled message, and really let it come out however it's going to come out. So when I'm recording this podcast, even Monty does his section first as we're recording before I add my section. And I think that, if it was the intention of trying to make it as viral as possible, I would record my section and have Monty come in and give a commentary, because there's a sense of control. I don't know what Monty's going to say. I don't know what direction he's going to go in. Sometimes he gives me kind of like broad strokes and stuff as we're doing things together, but it's really a level of trust in him that this is going to work out the way that we want it to. So by going forward with that intention of just being the vessel, making sure the messages are coming through as clear as possible in this work, that really changes versus the intention of, I want as many people to listen to this as possible. And when I think about my soul and its unique energy, a large part of my work in this is slowing down, being very much at peace. It's kind of funny when he was giving those examples. I'm the type of person that peace is one of my big energies. Stillness is a big energy for me and is a big theme of my life. And I want a lot of stillness in my life. I want to be the one sitting on the beach meditating. That is one of my goals, is to manifest that into my physical reality. And as he was talking about that, and I was listening back to it before I recorded this section of my own perspectives on it, I can see, okay, with that intention of treading along that path as I'm recording this podcast, it's very important for me to find that stillness instead of pushing forward and trying to go viral and trying to get that movement forward. For me, it's more about finding that stillness to make sure that the messages are coming through as clear as possible, and how different that is of an intention. And I have to trust that at the end of the day, after we've worked on this podcast for a while, we're going to have just as many listeners, if not more, than if we had done it the other way. And in fact, I firmly believe that we will be able to have this message shared in a much broader audience because of the clarity of the messages that are coming through, because I'm going slower, because of the way that this podcast has been produced. So it's examples like that we can think about in our lives of, okay, if we carry this one intention, that's going to change our behavior. The result is completely out of our control. I can't control how many people are going to listen to this podcast in the beginning, or if ever. I can do the things, I can show up, but whether or not people decide to listen to it is up to them, regardless of the content, regardless of the marketing, all of that. It comes down to the energy behind it. The energy of the intention is the reason why people are going to continue to listen to this podcast. And that comes from having the intention in the beginning that is aligned with my energy that feels the most authentic, because this should feel very authentic to you in the way that this podcast is set up right now, of really allowing it to flow from my energy and be that open vessel for Monty to come in, should feel very authentic to you, because this is my authentic energy as I'm showing up. And I can think about earlier in my life when that was not the case. Specifically, I've owned a marketing agency, as I mentioned in the first episode, for my entire career, pretty much. I only had 2 jobs before I started very young, started my own marketing agency. And the intentions that I set for that were very different when I first started and then where it ended up. Where it ended up was, it was very corporate feeling. We had an in-person team. We were in the tallest building in our state. And that's very at odds in many ways with who I am. I'm still presenting a different aspect of my soul and showing up in a different way than how I show up here, but it was very at odds. And I would often have clients that had known me for a while and had been working with me for a while. How you come across in the marketing of your agency and how everything's set up, so different from what it's like to actually work with you and what that process is like. That's where you can get where that intention is just so at odds with who you are. And I can think about how in my life, how stressful it was to maintain that intention that was so out of alignment with who I really am, and how stressful that was, and how difficult it was, and how much of a burden it was all the time to maintain that, to the point where I was so stressed out all the time. And it's really because that intention was off. The reason I was doing the things that I was doing was because I thought it was going to produce the results that I wanted. It never actually did produce the results I wanted, but I thought it was going to. And I was chasing a specific result, versus if I had gone through it with the intentions of, this is the energy that is unique to me that I'm going to bring to this business and bring to this marketing agency and bring to the work that I'm doing and bring to the client relationships, it would have been so much more authentic. It would have been easier for me to manage, would have produced the results in hindsight now, understanding, oh yeah, if people had seen that in the marketplace, they would have responded to it so much better. And to Monty's point, I could really regret this a whole lot and say oh gosh, I've made all these mistakes. I got to this point. I never got to the results that I wanted, but it's about changing going forward. And the truth is, changing going forward is doing my spiritual work, is showing up in this way of really being this channel and this vessel is very different. It's understanding that all the skills that I've developed running my marketing agency and that I still run now, all of that is not wasted. I can use all of that, understanding what my intention is now and changing to that, and understanding, yeah, while that wasn't super authentic to me and it was a result of the cultural conditioning that I had picked up along the way, it's not lost. It's not that it's not worth something. It's useful. It serves a purpose. Just It's not linear. As you've listened to this episode, Monty's recommended that you take some time to figure out what your soul's energy really is and what's unique to you. That can be a difficult process and was something that I have really struggled with a lot. And it's because for me, I'm often using external validation to figure out who I am and what is right for me. This is one of the major themes of my life that I completely know is part of my soul work in this particular lifetime. And it's also a result of the cultural conditioning I was raised in, especially as a woman. We're raised with a lot of, if you're not getting external validation, it's not right. You're not doing a good job. It's not who you really should be. So it's a lot of unlearning of that process of understanding. I don't need external validation to tell me who I am. I don't need my friends to tell me this is what your unique energy is. I don't need my clients to tell me this is how you show up and this is what I feel in sessions. And I don't need even you guys that are listening right now to really tell me, this is what this feels like to me. This is the energy behind it. All of that is external validation. And that is as an external source consuming my energy. You come to that with all kinds of different opinions and different perspectives about that energy. And it took until I really understood a lot about that I am a manifestor in human design. There are people who either really, really love me because they want to be around my energy, or people who really, really hate me for reasons that I have never really understood. If you know anything about human design, manifestors have what's called a repelling aura. What that means is you can't interpret my energy easily. You can never have the experience on the inside that I am having because my energy is repelling to you. Or it's highly attractive, but it's highly attractive because you want more of that energy. And once I really understood that of I'm in an aura that no one can understand my experience inside the aura, that made me understand a lot more that goes for everybody. A lot of times in psychic skills, we think, oh, well, I can read the situation and know everything about it because I'm psychic, right? There's that idea of once you get really good at reading energy, you can read the energy anywhere and you know everything that's going on. That's not true. While we can be able to see more insights that are obvious and that we can see through logic or through observation, being able to read energy does help with that. But it's not the same as sitting inside of someone's soul and having the experience that they are having. And that's why it's so important for you, if you really want to tread the path of intention in your life and live in that really authentic way, of sitting inside that energy with yourself and letting go of any kind of judgment, any kind of opinion, any kind of cultural conditioning that is coming to that, because it will always be external. It will never understand what is inside and what it's like to be inside that energy, to be exuding that energy, to be the one processing that energy on a consistent basis. So as you're kind of taking forward this intention of figuring out your own energy, understand that asking people, what am I like? What's my energy like? How would you describe me? It's helpful to a certain extent, but it's never going to be as good as sitting with your soul energy on your own. And I would really advise, letting go of those ideas and those inclinations to ask for other people to tell you about your energy. That's something that I had to learn the hard way, certainly because I did ask a lot. And what people said was so different and so off, depending on who I asked, because it really depended on what aspects of my soul I was sharing with them and how I was showing up in different parts of my life. Thank you so much for joining us for this third episode of Vessel and Voice. It's been a delight to have you here and to be able to share Monty's insights and perspectives and my own human counterpart perspective with you. I really appreciate it. And if you've listened to all 3 episodes of our podcast by this point, I would be absolutely honored, and so would Monty, if you would leave us a review to help us be able to reach more people. Share it with any friends that you think might be interested, or connect us with any different podcasts that you think that we should go channel on and share insights with others. I appreciate you so much, and Monty does too. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in the next one.